Your rotary cutter is one of the main pieces of your quilting equipment and really important to your life as a quilter. But if you're a beginner, how on earth do you use one of those? I've got you covered in this video, and I am sharing all my pro tips with you, but stick around to the end because I've got a really important tip that you won't find anywhere else. So grab yourself one of those. Grab yourself one of those. I am Kim. This is Quilt with Kim. You're very welcome. Let's move on to our first pro tip. So the first thing is how to hold your rotary cutter when you're cutting. So you'll probably have one of two types of rotary cutter. This particular one is a wand style because it looks like a wand. And the second one is one where you press the handle in to release the blade. It takes the guard off and releases the blade. On this wand style, we have to bring this little guard back and push it back on again when we're taking off and putting on the guard. With the one where you've pressed the handle inside, you'll find that there's a little button in here that goes through, and if you click it, I'm not sure which way around it is, but if you click it, it will lock that handle into place and it will lock your guard out whilst you're cutting, so it releases the blade. So having established that, whichever way round, you want to try and hold your rotary cutter as much as you can like a knife. Now on the wand style, you can see here we've got some serrated section here, which is where you put your finger. So we're trying to hold it almost like you hold your dinner knife. So if I can turn my hand around at a very odd angle, you can see how I'm pretty much holding that rotary cutter. So there will be a bit of weight coming off my finger here when I'm cutting, and then the rest of my hand is holding the handle to give me some stability and support, and then my thumb is ready here that I can pull down the guard and push it back up again when I need to. So the rule with your rotary cutter always, and all my students will tell you this, is that if you're not cutting, you have your guard on. So your guard only comes off when you are ready to cut and not before. Okay, so we're holding our rotary cutter as much as we can like a knife, and if you've got the one where we've pressed the handle in, try and hold it as much as you can in this position, because you'll find it a lot easier to cut than gripping the handle like this and trying to cut. That'll end up giving you wrist problems, or it can cause wrist problems, which we want to avoid, obviously. And stick around to the last tip, because I'm going to show you or let you into a bit of a secret that comes from my dim and distant past that will help you as much as you can to avoid the joint problems. So first up, holding our rotary cutter correctly. Then we have how we position the knife on our fabric, because, our rotary cutter on the fabric. It's very common for beginners to do one of two things, and that is to hold the rotary cutter in two extreme places. And I'm going to exaggerate now, so just bear with. So the first thing is they hold the rotary cutter at this kind of angle, so straight up and down, a 90 degrees angle to the cutting mat as they're trying to cut. That isn't going to work. It will be very uncomfortable on your hand, on your wrist. The pressure will be wrong. So we want to be avoiding that. The other thing is to have it too far laying down. Again, I am exaggerating, but I've seen beginners to try and hold their rotary cutter too far down. And again, you're not going to get the right kind of pressure through the blade. So the correct angle that you're trying to get to is a nice 45-degree angle. I'm going to lay it down flat. So this is the kind of angle we're looking at. Probably somebody will come along and say, that's not 45 degrees. I don't know exactly the degree, but we're looking for that kind of angle. So if that was 90, we don't want that. We don't want that. We want about there. You'll find your sweet spot as you get more practice with using your rotary cutter. After a while, you will naturally find where to hold that rotary cutter. But when you're starting out, aim for that 45-degree angle. holding it like a knife, and you're pretty much good to go for your cutting. Okay, so let me show you. If I start on the fabric itself, so I take my guard off, I've got my hand holding the rotary cutter a bit like a knife, I've got my finger on that bit on the top here. If I start cutting on the fabric itself and I cut up and I try and take that away, you can see that this is not coming away, and you'll get a little bit here that's still attached to your main piece of your fabric. However, if I start cutting on the on the cutting mat, not on the fabric, so guard off, on the cutting mat, and I'm exaggerating, I'm going to come all the way down here so that you can see I'm starting on the cutting mat, I'm giving myself a bit of pressure, and when I do that you can see that it all comes away very easily. So that is your next tip, is to start on cutting on the cutting mat. It will make a big difference. It won't harm your cutting mat at all. That's what they're designed to do. So start cutting on your cutting mat, not on your fabric. Okay, so the next thing is the pressure that we need. So there's this really good little middle ground that you need, and that is, you need more pressure than you think, but you're not after a white knuckle ride. So if you're gripping on for dear life and your knuckles are going white, that's not what we're after. What we're after is a goodly amount of pressure, because you're cutting through these layers of fabric. So more pressure than you definitely think you need, but then less pressure than you need as well. That's a very strange combination of instructions, isn't it? So let me try and show you. So when I start cutting, I've got my rotary cutter held like a knife. I take my guard off because I'm about to cut. I put my finger on the serrated bit on the top here, so I'm holding like a knife. I'm starting on the cutting mat. Now I am putting some pressure onto my rotary cutter, and I'm pushing into the cutting mat here. So I'm going to press down, and you can hear that nice sound if I shut up for a minute. That's the sound that you're after. I've stopped cutting, I'm putting the guard on before I do anything else. Okay, and that's come away. If you're starting to get, can you see that pulled a little bit? Actually, you may not have seen, but it pulled a little bit at the top of the screen there, just off the top of the screen. When it's starting to pull, that means my blade needs changing, or your blade needs changing. So if you're skipping stitches at all, if you've been cutting for a little while or your rotary cutter's been used, it will mean that your blade needs changing. But if you're brand new to rotary cutting and you have a brand new rotary cutter, then if you're missing stitches, if you're missing threads and you're not cutting through all the fabric, it'll be the amount of pressure that you need to put on. So you need to put more pressure on than you think. But as I said, we do not want white knuckle ride on this. So let me do that again. So I'm taking my guard off, holding my rotary cutter like a knife. I'm putting my finger on the serrated bit. I'm starting on the cutting mat, not on the fabric, and I'm going to press down. And by the way, the other thing that I'm doing is I'm pressing down on the ruler with my hand in this spidery position, and I hold my finger and thumb behind this inch line here, because if the rotary cutter slipped, so let's put the guard on and pretend, if my rotary cutter slipped, I've got a nanosecond or two to move my hand out of the way. If your hand is right at the edge of the ruler, that's really dangerous. So if I was cutting up here and for some reason I slipped because I wasn't pressing down hard enough, that's the other thing that can happen. It's very easy to get into my finger, and yes, you're probably sitting there going, oh no, that's horrible, and yes it is. So if you put your finger and your thumb behind this inch line, this first inch line, it gives you enough time for your brain to react and go into self-preservation mode. And if your rotary cutter slips, you've got enough time to bring your hand away there. So I've got my hand behind that inch line. I'm pressing down with all my fingers and all my thumbs, I've only got one thumb on this hand, but my fingers and my thumb, I'm pressing my ruler down onto the fabric. I take my guard off, holding it like a knife. I put it down, I get into position with my finger. I start on the cutting mat and I push away. Did you hear that nice sound that we get? As soon as I have come off the top of the fabric there, you notice I am not moving my hand because I want the pressure down still on my fabric. I'll tell you why in a second. I'm going to put my guard on, put my rotary cutter down. Now I'm going to check that I have cut this correctly, because if I've missed any stitches, if you have taken your, say you've missed some stitches, but you've taken your hand off and you pull that away, it'll pull the fabric and you'll get out of your measurement. So let me show you that before we move on to the next tip. Move my fabric along so that you can see it a little bit better. There we go. Otherwise I'll be off the edge of the screen. So let's pretend I'm going to do a really light cut now to pretend I haven't put enough pressure on. In fact, I won't put enough pressure on. So let me do start on the fabric, which we know we shouldn't be doing. And did you hear there's no cutting sound? There's a bit at the end. So let's pretend that I think that that's okay. I'm taking my hand off and I go, oh, look at that. Oh no. So that's what we want to avoid, because if this was a critical measurement, it's now going to be very difficult to get your ruler back on this critical measurement if you've pulled it all out of position. So what we want is to keep our hand on the ruler right to the end. So if we don't cut all the way through the fabric, I'm not sure I did that then, if we pull it away, our ruler is in place, and then if we've missed a bit, we can just cut through the rest of the fabric. Okay, so that's really critical to keeping your measurements and your accurate cutting. Okay, so throughout these tips, what you may have seen me always do is cut away from me. And that is my next really important tip, is to always, without fail, cut away from you. I do hear of people, especially beginners, who want to bring their rotary cutter towards them. That can be really dangerous because depending on your setup, you can bring your rotary cutter too close to you and get near to your clothes, or worse, your body itself, and we don't want that. So what we want to do is always cut away from you, and actually when we do that, we get the right kind of pressure behind the rotary cutter. And that will bring me nicely on to my very final pro tip, so let's get on with that one. Okay, so I'm going to let you into a little secret that applies to this last tip, and that was about 1,000 years ago, about 25 years ago, I was a qualified massage therapist. And why is that important? It's because when you are massaging somebody, there is a lot of wear and tear on your body, your joints, your fingers, and so on. And the same thing applies to when you are cutting with your rotary cutter. So I apply the same principle that I was taught way back then as a professional massage therapist, and apply that principle to now using my rotary cutter. So there is a stance, a way that you hold your body as a massage therapist, which you can use with your rotary cutter, which takes all the weight off your joints and your fingers. So let me try and show you. Now, I've tried to do my camera setup to show you my legs, and I can't quite do it. For some reason, it's not working. I do not know why. So what I'm going to do is try and endeavour to explain and to show you my top half, because that's the most important. So if I am face on to my cutting mat, my legs at the moment, my back legs, so I am right-handed, so my left leg is coming out slightly behind me at an angle, and it is straight, and my front leg, my right leg, is slightly bent. Okay, If you're a yoga aficionado, it's sort of like you're coming into a high lunge, but you're not going that far. So my feet are probably just about a foot apart. So a comfortable position where my back leg, my left leg is slightly straight and behind me, and my front leg, as I said, is just slightly bent at the knee. And this is what we want, because we want to bend forward and move in to that knee. And that's part of what will help you. The second bit is when we've got that stance and we're moving, say, with the knee, what I'm not doing is pushing down with my hands, I'm moving with the knee. So all together now we move with the knee. But what you do with your back is also really important. So I'm just going to show you on my left shoulder, even though I'm right-handed, but I'll just show you what I'm doing here. So I have got the rotary cutter in my hand, and as I am moving forward, I am pushing from my back and the back of my shoulder, and that's where the pressure and the weight come from. Okay, so you do need to hold your rotary cutter down into the fabric. Yes, you do. But where you're getting the weight from and the force or the pressure behind it is here. So as we move forward with our back left leg straight, so I'm right-handed, so it's the opposite leg to whatever handed you are. So if you're left-handed, it's the right leg that's straight, and I'm right-handed, so it's the left leg that is straight and back behind me, and my right knee is bent. And as I'm doing that, I am moving forward, and trying to get this the right way around. So I'm having to do this a bit left-handed, even though I'm right-handed, to show you on camera. So as I am moving forward, my weight comes from my back and my shoulder, and I move forward in a nice, smooth, cutting movement. And as I'm doing that, my other hand can be holding the ruler down, so I'm not gripping with my hand. The weight is coming from my shoulders and from my back, which is part of the strongest part of our body. And the other strongest part of our body is our thigh muscles, our quads and our thigh muscles. So they're designed to hold up our entire body. And so as we're leaning with those and we're pushing with those and we're pushing our back, we've got the two strongest parts of our body which are helping us with that smooth cutting move, and that is where your pressure comes from. So when you go and see a massage therapist, in fact, have a Google on YouTube. I know they're the same company. Have a look on YouTube at massage therapists and notice how they hold their body, because that's how you want to hold your body. It's the same stance, it's the same movement as a massage therapist. We're putting our hands and we're massaging somebody and we're moving away. That's what we're doing with our rotary cutter. So with all the years that I was a massage therapist, not as long as I've been a quilt tutor, but I was a massage therapist for about 5 years. And throughout that time, I never had any problems with any of my joints or my fingers or my back or anything like that, because I was taught how to stand correctly and how to move correctly. And that's what I want to pass over to you, to do the same thing, because it is exactly the same action. So you just got lucky that you're listening to this, and I happen to have done both things in my life. It's just, as a quilt tutor, I've been a quilt tutor far longer than I have ever been a massage therapist. But it is that move that you're after. So get your legs in the right position, you bend your waist, you bend your knees, and you move forward, and the pressure, the weight and the force, if you like, comes from your back and your shoulders, and you're bending into your knee and moving forward. What I'm not doing at all is standing up straight and bending over at my waist, because you'll end up with back problems with that, and you don't want that. And if you're doing that, you're going to end up putting pressure into your wrists, and you don't want that either. So whenever you're cutting, you want your fabric and everything as much as you can at hip level. So kitchen counters actually are a really good height for you to cut at if you've got that going on. But if you've only got your kitchen table, or you've got a desk that something is lower, then bend down into your knees more. Do not bend over more, bend into your knees more. We've all watched the videos about how to lift boxes. You bend from your knees and you lift like that. So utilize those kind of stances for when you're lining up for your rotary cutter and your ruler, and all your joints and your back will really thank you for it. So have a go at that. Let me know how you get on and if it makes a difference to you. So I hope all these pro tips have been really helpful to you and teaching you how to use your rotary cutter properly, like all of us tutors do, and you'll find all your cutting becomes so much easier. If you've enjoyed this, don't forget to like, subscribe and hit that notification bell, and I will look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.